Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and I know the title of this video might be a little wild, but I want to start off by saying piracy is never good, okay? Stealing and downloading things illegally is wrong, okay? I'm not encouraging anybody to break the law, so I want to just make it very obvious. I'm not even trying to meme, I'm not trying to be sarcastic here. Breaking the law is wrong. And because breaking the law is wrong, I'm going to play a clip, a very important clip that I think a lot of people have probably seen whenever they watched movies back in the day, okay? Now, if you grew up, you probably have noticed this FBI warning too many times when putting in a VHS or a DVD. You probably also noticed this specific advert that would tell you, hey, you wouldn't download a movie because downloading a movie is about as equivalent as stealing a handbag or a car or a television or anything of that nature. Now, while software piracy is, in fact, a crime and it can be incredibly serious, one thing that I've always found is obviously the industry's reliance on this level of fear-mongering. And obviously, even television shows like South Park and the Boondocks have oftentimes ripped on this. Looking at piracy in the sense of, yes, it being stealing is one thing, but given how game preservation is going, it's unfortunately become the only way to properly preserve any video game. If there's one phrase in this video that I unfortunately have to say is, in a case of game preservation, sometimes the only way to preserve our games is unfortunately to break the law. So let's get down a little bit into that. To really understand how this starts, we have to take a look at what has been happening with Sega and what's about to really occur in the next month, with a massive delisting of their entire gaming history. Well, if you haven't been noticing, in the last couple days, a massive delisting of over 60 classic games actually is in the process, as early as next month. So Sega is an amazing gaming company that I think makes a lot of brilliant games. Games that I've grown up with, games that I play to this day, like the Yakuza franchise. Now, Sega is actually delisting a whole bunch of games, and I want to read through this FAQ that they brought out literally 2 days ago. So what's happening to Sega Classic games? Select games and bundles are delisted from virtual stores, becoming unavailable for new purchases. Now, thankfully, if you already own some of these games, they'll be in your library. Now, the reason this doesn't really matter so much for me is as somebody that's talked about game preservation and keeping my hobby alive for generations to come, I'm more interested in these publishers and developers keeping ways active so people can purchase these video games legally, right? Now look, the reason I started this video off on piracy is a lot of people use piracy as this really dirty word, and don't get me wrong, if you're pirating a brand new game, that's probably not the most ethical or moral thing to do. But if a company does not sell a game, if the company does not allow you to give them money to play a video game that is like 10, 15, 20 years old, sometimes even more, then is it really morally wrong to download a game that you can't even actually financially support? No, it's not. And of course, if you're talking about, but Muta, why don't you just buy it off eBay for like $400 if the game is really rare? That's because I'm not giving Jim Bob $400 for a cartridge that doesn't even benefit the actual publishers or the developers or people that have made that game in general, okay? It's not something that I think people should support because it's the right thing or something that people have thrown in. I'm not going to support the inflated retro game market simply because of the inflation surrounding it, okay? I'm not pyro, all right? It's not how it works. So anyways, when will the Sega Classic games be delisted? So out of nowhere, they're about to delist this whole goddamn list of video games as early as December 6th, okay? So at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard, those games are gone from purchase. Will I still be able to play those classic games? Oh, absolutely! Anything you own is in your library. So if anything of that list interests you, it's probably time that you start buying before they start getting delisted. So again, if you look actually into the list, some of these games are pretty important. Some of these are actually really cool titles, like Comix Zone, for instance. If you've never played Comix Zone, absolutely brilliant visuals, some of the best gameplay from that era on the Genesis that you can experience right now, okay? Games like Crazy Taxi. I mean, there are US politicians that are still trying to like show people that they're epic gamers using Crazy Taxi. In fact, if you've never played Crazy Taxi, it's probably had a profound effect on several other games in the industry. It's actually a pretty addictive, fun game. The thing is, getting rid of it, delisting it, is just never good. But again, the more you go down into it, you've got games like Echo Jr., Echo the Dolphin, Bro, I was a kid when I played Echo the Dolphin, and it's a banger. You know, what about an amazing set of RPGs that you probably missed out on? Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4. Brilliant titles. Nights in a Dream, also an amazing game. So yeah, all these titles are effectively getting removed. And of course, if you look at what's getting removed from the consoles, it starts to make a little bit more sense. The actual one game that's getting delisted is the Sega Genesis Classics. Now, this is actually a collection that I bought like years ago when I saw it on sale. And I kind of like these collections because usually when a gaming company provides you access, like, hey, you give us $40, we'll give you like 50 games that you can play on your device conveniently. I will always financially support it. Now, this collection is just basically emulated games wrapped up in this cool menu that has you take place as a kid in a bedroom, you know, putting these games up into a virtual Sega Genesis or, you know, whatever Sega console and playing it on a virtual CRT TV. It's kind of cute, it's kind of wholesome, and it's one of those collections that, like, if you don't own, you probably want to pick up at some point. And I'm assuming it's pretty cheap at this point, physically, even digitally, maybe. So yeah, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Sega is removing a bunch of their games from access. So games like Phantasy Star 2 that you can pick up for $1.29 Canadian, less than $1 American, by the way. Okay, you can play this banger RPG right now. So even if you go to actual like Steam over here, you'll find out that according to, you know, the guys over at Steam, greetings Sega fans, we got some news to share regarding our classic bundles. As of December 6th, we'll be saying farewell to new purchases of Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classics and Dreamcast Classics. Both of these great bundles and individual games will be delisted on Steam December 6th. No worries, if you already own them, they'll still be in your library. I love how cheery it is for any game publisher to just come out and say, yeah, we're not selling you games anymore. And honestly, these games are not like titles where they've magically lost the rights. Dog, they fucking own these IPs. I don't understand why it's becoming an issue where out of nowhere, we're literally getting Sega to completely cull like 60 plus of its classic titles out of literally fucking nowhere. Now look, I don't hide the fact that I support like Stop Killing Games pretty heavily, and I'm always going to be a supporter of it because it's that kind of a campaign that prevents publishers like Sega from removing games like Jet Set fucking Radio, okay? It's already difficult as fuck to preserve this one title, so the fact that it's getting taken away from a place where you could buy it for like $11 Canadian is just goddamn insultingly terrible. And not only that, if you look at the fucking Dreamcast collection, guys, you've got Sonic Adventure 2. That game alone is worth that game alone is worth price to admission, okay? Now, I already own Sonic Adventure 2, so again, these titles that are readily available, it's not like Sega loses the rights to Sonic Adventure 2. Bro, if Sega is losing the rights to a Sonic game, we've got to talk about actual copyright law and IP law in today's day and age. So yeah, totally normal day when like massive games get taken down. Now, I've heard some people speculate that, oh, Muda, it's probably Sega just willing to bundle these games up in a new super collection that they'll sell you down the road. Now, I don't make videos speculating about what could happen in the future. I just talk about what's happening to video games as they happen. And the thing is, if Sega decides to release these things down in a collection down the road, sure, that might be cool, but removing them without even addressing this or like giving people an option and saying, hey, in a month we'll bring it back in a bigger collection is actually scary. You're kind of just speculating if this company will be nice enough to keep these games updated. And even if a game company keeps things updated, it doesn't mean that they'll be in the best possible way. Sometimes what's currently available is better than what could be available down the road. And I guess I'll give you a great example of that possibility. It's called the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition Collection. Now, when it comes to the topic of game preservation, now just to give more context into it, the Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition has actually seen a pretty massive update in the last couple of days, and I want to just get this into the video. For example, if you actually looked at a video I probably made around a year ago, Rockstar actually released a Definitive Edition onto mobile devices through Netflix and also selling them for, again, actual full price on the app stores or Play stores, respectively, for whatever device. Now, some of these versions came with classic lighting and some enhancements that didn't make their way over to the PC or consoles. So in the last couple days, there's been another patch that literally around 2 to 3 years after the actual game's release finally has seen Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition actually B, the definitive edition. I mean, the games actually look and match the feel of the PlayStation 2 originals, with the graphical enhancements respectfully boosting these titles up, and there have been several under-the-hood gameplay fixes and readjustments that actually make these games feel closer to a modern GTA release, as opposed to a release that's like 20 years old. But let's get back to exactly why I'm focusing on the definitive edition and why I'm even talking about Grand Theft Auto and these older games at all. And one of the reasons why I'm really talking about this is, as of like a month ago, I've literally only finished like Silent Hill 2. Like, that's gone out of my radar. I'm done. So most of the games that I've been playing, two franchises recently, are the Grand Theft Auto titles, the original trilogy, and Splinter Cell, the entire franchise. Now, these games are about 10 to 20, over 20 years old at this point, some of them. And honestly, these are probably some of the worst preserved games imaginable. It's kind of hilarious that Rockstar, who has basically built itself off of the pedigree of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas, and several other IPs, no doubt, these games are so poorly preserved that I honestly think it's worth, like, there have been entire videos and discussions talking about this. Now, the definitive edition, for anybody that doesn't remember, it was announced with, just an overhaul, like it was an Unreal Engine version of the original 3 games running, and it was supposed to be this sort of definitive collection that people could just buy and play and experience this original trilogy with some quality of life fixes. And while there are some fixes, these games are so patently broken still to this day that it's actually better for you to find PS2 versions of the original games and play them with the soundtracks and better quality, and better just quality in general right there, okay? I mean, even visually speaking, these games have lost the entire soul of what it is to play those original PS2 games. These games quite literally look like some fucking junior game developers' first attempt at Unreal Engine or Unity in terms of asset quality and lighting and whatnot, as compared to the brilliant titles that existed on the PlayStation 2. Now, I think it's actually criminal that Rockstar still sells this dog shit for $80, okay? The fact that somebody has to spend $80 to play an inferior version of quality fucking games that are not obscure indie titles by any imagination, okay? Games like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas have literally been system sellers. One of the best-selling games of all time. One of the highest-rated games of all time, okay? This is not an obscure title. This is something that most people my age, if you ever touched a PlayStation 2, have actually played. So yeah, when you go to Rockstar's website, it's actually interesting that if you really dig through their games list, you will eventually find Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, as opposed to The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. Do not buy the Defective Edition. This is a $40 package that apparently contains the original games. And my god, even in their low resolution, it still looks light years better than the definitive dog water. But the thing is, purchasing these games entitles you to versions that are so old that running them right off of the bat is clinically insane, okay? You just shouldn't do it. Now, I'm going to walk you through the tunnel of insanity that is playing an older PC game, right? Now, Grand Theft Auto older PC ports were never exactly the greatest PC ports. I think they were mostly an afterthought by Rockstar. So just for this example, I'm going to show you the fun of playing Vice City. Now, downloading Vice City off of Steam, not the hardest thing in the world. This is a slightly different version than the Rockstar Games Social Club Launcher version, just because it's a more recent patch, I think, but not that this really means a whole lot. So when you download the game and you start running it, the first error I get is cannot run in 640 by 480 mode, which is kind of a shame because I don't think I've had a 640 by 480 screen for quite a long time. Now, of course, this isn't really an issue right off the bat. I mean, it is an issue if you were selling the game and it comes this broken, but thankfully, because of the community, there exist several patches, not created by Rockstar in any capacity, that you can then get and install and hopefully get this game up and running. One of those patches was Silent Patch, which contains a litany of fixes for not just Grand Theft Auto Vice City, but also for Grand Theft Auto 3 and especially San Andreas. Now, these patches have been updated as recently as of 2024, I believe November even. So these are very recent patches, and of course it shows you the dedication the community has to keeping these older, amazing titles alive. So downloading and installing these patches wasn't the end of the world, it simply meant that I copied a few files to the directory of Vice City. After I did this, I could actually run the games and play them. Now, you might think everything is fine and hunky-dory, but if you play Grand Theft Auto games, especially older ones, above a frame rate of 30, the physics are absolutely ass-fucked. For instance, have you seen Tommy Vercetti push a car just by sprinting at it? No, you probably haven't, unless of course you decided to run Grand Theft Auto Vice City with the frame limiter off. Now, because this game gets so broken at a frame rate above 30, I wonder why Rockstar even allowed this to begin with. At 60 frames, you can see these vehicles move, and the higher your frame rate goes, the more awful the game comes to play. Alright, NPCs have issues walking around, driving becomes an absolute tragedy because you can't turn your vehicle. Sometimes inputs don't even properly register. It is an objectively terrible way to play the game. Now obviously you could set the limit to 30 frames and play it, but at that point it's actually a lot easier to just emulate the PS2 versions of these games. Not only do they have actual graphic features that are completely missing from the PC version unless you patch them, it's just easier to get it running underneath PCSX2. Okay, but let's say you wanted to get the frame rate up. Well, at this point, I had to actually download more mods. So I had to get Frame Rate Vigilante, Open Limit Adjuster, and then of course, installing them wasn't really that big of an issue. When I copied them, they immediately crashed. Then I realized I missed a dependency known as Mod Loader, so I had to get that installed. Then I needed Ultimate ASI Loader, so I had to get that installed as well. I had to change around a bunch of fucking INI settings, and even then, at the end of the day, I got an unhandled exception error. Now, I'm not somebody that gives up, so immediately after bashing my head against a wall for about 20 more minutes, I realized that just by the stroke of luck, or maybe God was forgiving me, at some point, Grand Theft Auto Vice City finally started to run, and you could play the PC version pretty effectively. And of course, if you then wanted to restore older music, provided you didn't have a legacy Steam version, then there are mods to do just that. But this shows you the level of dedication it takes to get these older games running. At the end of all this, the funniest part was, in order to get this game to even run on my Steam version, I had to download a no CD crack off of the ass crack of the internet just to get this functioning with the mods present, because a lot of mods are really designed for version 1.0. So inadvertently, I had to pirate a game that I have purchased at one point in order to get it fucking functioning on modern hardware, or just get it running at all. And you know, if Rockstar is selling these kind of games, and I can't really attest to the Rockstar Games version of it, but I doubt that version has these fixes present. It's not like these fixes are a state secret, they are developed by the community, so honestly, I really wonder if Rockstar could have just worked with these guys and actually have packaged a version of the game that provides all these fixes without actually having gamers pull their hair out. You know, it's weird with PC games that a lot of people have just become accustomed to, hey, it's an older game, you probably have to move things around. But there exist projects and companies and brands like GOG that easily provide you one-click installers for really old games, like Diablo, that you can just install within one click and get going, get running. They contain all the necessary fixes and patches. I don't know why Rockstar doesn't choose to work with these companies in order to keep these games preserved and alive. I think it's insane we've reached a point where games as popular as Grand Theft Auto Vice City 3 and San Andreas do require you to actually install cracks, patches, fan fixes in order to get running. I mean, you really have to give these games the fucking Bethesda treatment before you even consider playing them. And with the recent patch of the Definitive Edition, I think I'll just say it right now, if all you want to do is play these classic games, those are probably better options, because at least you don't have to work around with getting these fixes up and running if all that takes is just a quick download and a run. Look, with this franchise, you gotta be willing to do a lot of give and a lot of take, okay? You gotta be willing to give up things in order to get other luxuries. It's actually insane. I've never played a game franchise that is this requiring of compromises from its player base. So again, to tie it kind of into the old idea of piracy, right? Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that you had to dig through Rockstar's website to find this $40 package, it's actually a shame that this is a game that is unavailable on Amazon, Games for Windows Marketplace, God forbid the 3 people that ever purchased a game off there, Green Man Gaming, Humble Store, and Steam. All of these are unavailable experiences. And again, the only way to get it is thankfully through Rockstar's publisher, and combining it with fan patches and downgraders, That is the only way you as a gamer are able to experience this title in the modern era, okay? It's not thanks to Rockstar, it's thanks to the modding community that at least fixes up their dog shit. So again, this is a game that thankfully, I guess, is available. Now looking at Splinter Cell, I've been playing through the entire franchise, and I swear to God, it is a franchise with like, I want to say 6 core games. You've got the original Splinter Cell, you've got Pandora Tomorrow, you've got Chaos Theory, Double Agent, Conviction, and Blacklist. You want to know which one of those games is just not available? The second one, Pandora's Tomorrow. So what's really funny about it too is like looking at this game, again, going to the PC Gaming Wiki, it is literally unavailable to buy. Ubisoft is probably one of the worst publishers when it comes to preserving their titles. Like, Splinter Cell is not a small Ubisoft release. This is a franchise that put them on the fucking map. And my god, it is a complete afterthought at this point. Now, the thing about Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow is one of the reasons that I've heard it isn't available at all is apparently people will say it's literally one of those games that just isn't available because of an issue with something known as shadow buffering, where actual modern day graphics cards can't process shadows in the game because it's actually that old. Now, thankfully, there are fan patches for this. There's one person known by 13AG that literally has all these fixes available for these games. And it takes maybe, I want to say maximum, like if you wanted to really time yourself, 5 minutes to drag and drop a file and get these games functioning. Something that Ubisoft does not care to do at all. Okay, Ubisoft can't even download this guy's fix, maybe credit him a little bit, and apply a free fix, a free little file, a DLL file into their game just so you can fix this up and get people to play one of these games again. Now, it's not only the fact that they don't even sell it, the fact that I had to go out of my way to find a pirated version of it somewhere on the internet, a free file sitting through these Steam forums, is actually mind-bogglingly stupid. You know, it's actually insane that in order to preserve the medium we so much love, we have to unironically break the law. Like, you can't even make that up. Like, literally, to play a game that is this old, that literally shouldn't have licensing issues at all, is completely unavailable and it won't come back. And, you know, for Ubisoft, for people to defend this company and say, oh, they're not going to give you an inferior product, this is a product that I purchased from them for about like $10. I actually paid like $2 because it was on sale. I figured probably, it's $2. I can't feel too bad. I actually feel scammed by this purchase. So to explain why I feel scammed, if you look at the Steam page quite closely, you'll notice that the screenshots are actually from the Xbox original version of Splinter Cell Double Agent, which was never released on PC. So right off the bat, we are selling a product on Steam at the moment officially under a complete fucking lie. So I don't know how this has been allowed on Steam by Valve and how Ubisoft hasn't fixed it, but then I remembered, okay, why not just play the actual game? And then it all made sense. The PC port for this game runs at such low quality that I feel like the development history behind it involved people over at, I believe, Ubisoft Shanghai going out into the streets, abducting homeless people. This is my personal belief, by the way. I'm not saying this is a fact. And those people were thrown into a game of Saw, like a Saw-like trap, where the only way to survive was to actually produce a video game. Now, it really feels that way because whoever coded this had no fucking knowledge of how to actually program a PC game. For instance, not having my graphics settings saved is the least of my issues, okay? Beyond the crashes, it's the low frame rate, and the fact that this game looks worse than a PlayStation 2 title, despite somehow having the same fucking assets as an Xbox 360 game, is insane. The fact that even the mere act of loading a save file apparently involves loading a mission first, then the save file because of how the game's programmed, had me completely floored. Now here's the wild thing about Splinter Cell Double Agent. What if I told you it is actually easier, somehow better, to play the Xbox 360 version of the game backed up to your computer, running through the Xenia emulator? Not only does the game look better, but you can even achieve 60 frames per second. And it has, from my experience, better controller support. Yeah, I swear to God, this is the one time where I had to whip out the 360 emulator because the PC version was so bare bones ass that it reminded me of why PC gaming in this era was honestly hit or miss. You know, this is an era of like 2006, 2007, 2008, when honestly PC gaming wasn't really treated, properly. Nowadays, if you get a PC port, it's probably on par with the console versions. There might be issues, but nowhere close to that 2007, 2008 Grand Theft Auto 4 Splinter Cell Double Agent era, where the games literally ran like complete shit. These ports are so bad that even under modern hardware, they still run like actual shit. It is insane how much shit Ubisoft sells. And again, the reason you would get the 360 version is still you would have to break the law by backing up the fucking disc and running it in the emulator. You have to violate the copyright protections just to play a fucking game in the year 2024. And this game isn't even that old, okay? There's games far older. This is from like the 360 generation. If you have an Xbox One, just play it on that. Honest to God, thank you, Microsoft, for the backwards compatibility system, for at least providing some way to play this Ubisoft title. Why is Ubisoft still selling this? I, honest to God, feel scammed, and now I hope you understand why. Now again, even going back to Rockstar Games again with titles like Manhunt 2. Now, if you want to try and purchase Manhunt 2, it's not available. Even Rockstar doesn't sell or acknowledges this game. And let me explain why. It's an adults-only game, meaning that this game on the PC is completely uncensored. Now, if you want to know about the Manhunt 2 controversy, this is a game that I think had to be censored twice by the British Video Games Rating Agency, and that's because it's such a violent, over-the-top, mature game that if you ever thought that Rockstar controversies with Grand Theft Auto were bad, Manhunt as a franchise could never exist today, okay, at all. It's just that violent and insane of a franchise. But I like Manhunt 2. I think this is a great game. I've played through it on my channel. This game is so violent that some videos that I've uploaded have literally been age restricted because it's that gory, okay? And the thing is, buying this game isn't really possible anymore. Again, Rockstar does not preserve this title whatsoever. And unless you find a pirated version of the game floating around on the internet, once again, you gotta break the law to play some of these classic titles. And not only just break the law, you gotta find somebody that's willing to patch these games, because you know your ass Rockstar isn't doing it. That's the only way to get down and play this stuff. Now, again, going back to one of the statements from the ESA, we actually looked at this, like I want to say a week, 2 weeks ago, when it came to the DMCA ruling on, again, emulation and preservation of video games for specifically research purposes. When you've got organizations like the ESA that literally get in the way of actual proper game preservation or an attempt to get games preserved, I find it hilarious that the ESA can sit down and say, hey, we love to advocate for laws and regulations that help the industry create, distribute, and protect the games we all know and love to play. These people don't care about preservation. They don't care about this art. They care about power and control, and that's it. Simple as that. Look, at the end of the day, it's kind of insane that as I've been playing a lot of these older games for the past month, it literally has forced me to consider breaking the law just to play video games that are like, what, 15, 20 years old? Games that I played when I was a kid. Look, some people might say, Muda, it doesn't matter, okay? Who plays old video games? If you're 12 years old right now and you're playing a modern PlayStation 5 game, when you reach the age of 30 and that game becomes more difficult to play because of licensing issues, maybe some song lost its rights and nobody wants to patch a game or bring it back, then you'll be in the same situation I'm in. And then you have to ask yourself the question, all right, should we focus on this now and make sure that we don't have to break the law in order to preserve these games and play them? That's a question I think you should ask. That's a question I think is worth mulling around in your head. And when it comes to game companies like Sega delisting like 60 games out of nowhere, it's never a good sign for an industry like this. That out of nowhere, video games are completely ripped away and lost to the ether of time. Look, I have no issue with any company selling a title, but at least make it readily available, all right? At least make it there. Even if the community has to come down and patch your game for you, at least give the option for you to download the game and at least buy it easily. Look, piracy is never really like, a cost issue. It's more of like an availability issue. If you look at Valve's history with Steam, operating in regions like Russia where like monthly salaries are far lower than that of the United States, Giving people an option for proper regional pricing and having an actual service that respects them and gives them easy access to video game downloads is something that allowed that company to prosper in regions that normally would be laden with piracy. And that's one of the things that I feel kind of applies to old video games. Look, I love playing older titles, and I'm sure some of you watching also care about playing older titles. And if you're too young to be in the situation I'm in, time is a linear object. It only goes forward. If you're young right now, you're going to be just as old as me sometime down the road, as will your favorite games that you grew up with. And if you're not preserving them now, then you're going to lose them forever. And there is nothing sadder than pieces of human history and art lost to the fabric of time. It's happened before, it's happening today, and it'll happen tomorrow. And unless we actually do something about it, it is what it is. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I want to end this video, I guess. It's kind of lengthy, on would you download a car? Because I'll tell you what right now, if I could download me a fucking Ferrari, I'm going to do it every single day. Legally speaking, of course, okay? I don't want to be breaking no laws in any capacity. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.